Hey there, folks. Welcome to this week's astrological report. This is for November 18 through November 24 of 2025. Hope you're all doing well. And hey, thanks so much for the likes and the comments on my last video. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Go ahead and hit that like button on this one as well. I would appreciate that. So this week we have a lot going on astrologically. There's a lot of major changes, a lot of aspects. We have a change of season right after we have a new moon that we're starting, and some sign changes as well. So let me go ahead and list all these major aspects, and I'll talk about it and what it might mean. So we start things off actually with Mercury retrograde going back to Scorpio. So big transition here about the communications, the mind, the way people are thinking and processing information and trying to get down to the bottom of truth and answers. And going back to Scorpio is going to be a part of that, of going deeper for what's hidden, what's below the surface that the sun has already been trying to highlight for a while. But it will be a big change for everything about Mercury. That's continuing for this overall Mercury retrograde process. Now Mars is out in front of everything, as I mentioned last week, and Mars is going to stay kind of the leader of all the planets all the way from now through into January, really. So the rest of this year and into January, Mars is in the lead. And then by Capricorn season, mid-Capricorn season, the Sun and Venus will finally catch up to Mars and overtake it. But from now until then, it's really about our instincts, our passion, a drive to be moving forward. But it's also Mars, the planet that rules war and aggression, is out in the lead, taking charge. And there could be some really powerful new developments for the rest of this year with that Mars in front of everything, being ruled by Jupiter, that comes back down to safety and security issues for people. And what's driving them is a need for safety and security on different levels of life. But on a mundane level with military developments, it's also kind of related to the homeland and security issues for the homeland that the action will be kind of driven by. So there's that Mercury change and Mars in the front of everything for a while. And we also have Venus here connecting to the nodes of fate. Venus in Scorpio is starting to make a trine this week with the North Node of Destiny and a sextile to the South Node. So everything about Venus, relationships and money, are in a fateful dynamic for this week. Now the markets, I'm pretty sure I was pretty accurate with my Taurus full moon video talking about the peak of the current markets, because things have been going down for the most part. There's days that it'll go up a little bit, but for the most part, it feels like that Taurus full moon was kind of the peak in the temporary for markets. I don't think that we're necessarily 100% out of the bull market yet, but we are kind of in a down phase. And that makes sense already, just having the fact that Venus is considered debilitated in Scorpio. It's not at its best. And so I think it's going to reflect that in the markets a little bit for a while. But in the meantime, this week, there is still major important developments with money for the future, for work, and other relationship dynamics that are fateful. And that's going to be on Wednesday, November 19, connected to the Scorpio new moon. But we also have this Mercury backing up into an opposition with Uranus. And this is different now because Uranus is in Taurus versus Gemini, where the first opposition went through. So now there's another opposition to Uranus, both from Mercury, but also the sun and the new moon building up opposite Uranus. And this gives a lot of volatility in the air as well. But volatility and changes that still have a fateful component to it, because again, Venus is in charge of Taurus where this is happening, and Venus is in alignment with the nodes of fate. But it's still going to add a lot of unpredictability, possibility of some surprises that could be coming out. It gives more of a rebellious vibe in the air, in the world, and especially in this Taurus sign in Scorpio. It also deals with the financial security of the world and a little bit of rebelliousness about things that are normally stable and secure, breaking things free. It's also going to be the peak of the Sun-Uranus energy because of the opposition. It goes back to when the Sun was conjunct Uranus. Now the Sun has come all the way around to the culmination point of Sun-Uranus vibes, of rebellious vibes and revolutionary energy and changes that are trying to take place. So things may not be as stable as they otherwise would be in this particular phase because, first of all, Uranus is back at 29 degrees. It's a sense of urgency. It's a critical degree for Taurus and what's normally stable and secure. And now there's opposition to that this week, which is going to be kind of connected to the entire Scorpio cycle that we're entering. When the moon reaches the sun there, will be in opposition too. So the new moon opposite Uranus, this entire cycle has revolutionary vibes to it and changes to it, which will also affect money, investments, resources. And you have to be careful of that. Be careful of getting sucked into impulsiveness. Just check yourself, and your instincts. Make sure you're on the right path before you just jump headfirst into anything. So Mercury also backs up into a trine with Neptune again. So this Mercury going back and forth with all these outer planets, it's getting a lot of insights from and connections from these outer planets, including what's behind the scenes, tapped into this Neptune now, plus the sun and the new moon is building the trine to the Neptune. We're going to start putting more and more focus into what's normally hard to see and understand, and conspiracy and scandalous things going on from behind the scenes. And again, the bottom of this is about getting to truth and understanding and trying to reveal secrets and scandals and conspiracies and what's been hidden, and we need both Sagittarius and Scorpio to find the truth, because there's things that are deeper, that are buried, that are hard to get to in a sense. But we are going to start turning the corner. And as we start building into this new cycle, we're going to gain more and more light on the moon night by night. 2 weeks later, we're going to reach the full moon phase in Gemini by December. And that's really going to culminate a lot of information and data. But it's tricky because there's things that are being highlighted that are true, and there's deeper aspects of understanding that we're coming into. But at the same time, the astrology tells me to be very cautious on what we are seeing, what is being projected out into the world, the news, the media, because there is still some distortions to truth. There's some distortions to the data and the information and the media still going on, even a little bit of conspiracy vibes here from behind the scenes. Again, this is not visible. This is stuff that people cannot see very easily. And that's more on the mundane level. Again, there's certain things that we're trying to figure out, but we're still, it's almost like half truths too, where we are seeing some truths, but yet we're not having the full story, the full picture of every single detail in this particular phase. But we are trying to work up to that, and then on more personal levels, we're still dealing with this Saturn-Neptune in Pisces. This is a tough area for everybody, generally speaking. It's going to be tougher for some people more than others, but this is a difficult position that can be challenging people on how they feel, their emotions, their sense of what's possible, what's not possible, victimhood mentality versus taking responsibility for the self and working on the self. There's just a lot of psychological, emotional, and deeper dynamics that are behind the scenes, pulling people down into the depths as well, generally speaking. Now, Jupiter is activating this grand trine that's still in place with the Scorpio. So it's still, it's one of these tricky dynamics where there is support, there is opportunity, like Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and the sun, they're all helping each other out in this particular phase. But it's also deep emotional, psychological things that it's connected to that not everybody is conscious of. That's, some people, it'll pull them back into their old patterns, their old habits of escapism tendencies, or unhealthy lifestyles, drinking or drugs, or other forms of just like feeling like life is too hard, wanting to give up. And it doesn't affect every single person in the same way. These transits affect us all differently. So keep that in mind, but there's still a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not perfectly clear about just yet. So we still are having some connections to it, trying to see things and work things out. And there is still information that's being processed with this Mercury retrograde that will lead to more truth and understanding when it's all said and done. But we do have this Neptune connection too that adds a lot more dreaminess, intuition, fantasies, and then just, again, tapped into a more intuitive kind of understanding. There could be a lot that people are picking up on, and yet it's not 100%. Are we clear that that is truth? It's more of a feeling like, yeah, we're picking up on something. We feel something here, but it's not necessarily in the data or the information that's coming out. So I still look at it as in between. We're still digging deep for truth and answers, and we're not 100% there yet. Plus, this is a new moon. This is when there's no light on the moon. Again, it's going to be waxing for 2 weeks, building more and more light and understanding. So still be patient. We don't have all the answers necessarily. And this is definitely on a global level of what's happening from behind the scenes. And you have to be careful, or just not be careful, but I would say understand that we could be misled too. This is a little bit of a conspiracy, scandalous vibe here that's kind of shaping things right now. Everything is so connected to what is behind the scenes, but not in a direct way. So I personally use the astrology to tell me that not everything is as it appears to be with this placement. And so that tells me not to be as trusting to what I hear or what's going on in the world and what we see is going on and things like that for now. But it also kind of pulls people back into this past too of extra imagination and creativity and what's real and what's not real, philosophy, people's ideologies. It's all getting all stirred up again. And it's kind of like we've gone back into the past a little bit. The world was kind of moving forward when all these planets moved into their new signs. And now we're back into the old a little bit more, getting sucked into the past a little bit more. Or the past vibes are getting more like a regeneration and a boost a little bit too, until we get into the middle of 2026 and beyond, and then we're back in the new again. All right, so anyway, so we have that new moon. That's going to be the main event, of course, on Wednesday, November 19. I'll be talking about that new moon and how I see it. But then we also have Mercury Sun conjunction. It's also known as the Cazimi, where Mercury and the Sun are, where Mercury reaches the heart of the Sun. And this is a process where they're crossing in different directions. And that can lead to, again, some additional insights. I don't think totally, though. We're not totally there yet. But it's just another round of insights and information and wisdom and knowledge and truth that's trying to be exposed and come out more and more, even though we're not 100% there yet. It's just a part of the process. But it can give us some insights, some downloads from a higher source of understanding and things like that. And then Uranus is back in a sextile with Neptune. They first started this perfect sextile back in the summer of 2025 in their new signs, and now they're back in the old signs making this sextile. So Uranus sextile Neptune. Wow, Neptune is a major player here at this critical last degree of the zodiac, and everything is kind of in alignment with it right now. And I just, the way I look at Neptune, the way I work with Neptune, and I've seen it play out so many times in people's transits, how it really does distort things and creates things that just aren't normally there or real or what people are into. So this is a really powerful dynamic. Like this is the first time these two planets are connecting since they were conjunct in Virgo back in the 60s. Now they're finally reaching the sextile with each other. So the roots of what this is talking about goes way back. You know, the revolutionary energy, what inspires revolution, what are the dreams, what are the fantasies that are driving this need for liberation and breaking free and changing certain things about the world, about money, materialism. Again, I think with the opposition going on to Uranus at the same time, it's just really adding more inspiration to revolutionary vibes in the air in this particular part of the zodiac. And that's going to be an ongoing sextile. They're going to be making these perfect sextiles back and forth for the next 2 years. So it's not just like a one-time deal and that's it. This is a ongoing connection that the world has between the outer planets in this rare way. And it basically just shows, again, the world is changing. Like the way the world runs and functions and the structures and the systems, they're all changing. But we're kind of back in the past. We're being drawn into the past a little bit before we come back to the new and the future again. And then the sun is making that exact opposition to Uranus on November 21st. The sun is also making the trine to Neptune, and then the sun changes signs. So there's a lot of aspects for the sun, which deals with world leaders and where the focus is and what we are focused on and what is also connected to us and how we're focused on things. I'll talk more about the way I look at that as I'm going through the daily chart. But there's a change of season right after the new moon. So even though we're rooted in Scorpio, a lot of this season or a lot of this cycle is going to be about Sagittarius. And normally when planets are leaving Scorpio and entering Sagittarius, it's like kind of an uplifting vibe out of the deep end of life, out of the more intense, kind of serious side of life into this more uplifting, hopeful, more inspired, more positive side of life, generally speaking. But in this dynamic, even though the sun is coming there, Mercury's going backwards. It's like, oh no, we have to go back into the deep end of life, going back into the depths. And so we're kind of stuck in between this Scorpio Sag in this particular season that's not normal of what we normally have. But it's this combination, like I've been saying, about, again, what's below the surface, what's hidden, this regeneration and rebirth energy versus Sagittarius philosophy, the truth, understanding, wisdom, and knowledge, and the bigger picture of life and the future. It's like we have to get down to the depths of the details of things about the past to better understand where we're going. There's a certain amount of uncertainty that's possible still with this Neptune at 29 Pisces for the world. A little bit of confusion, some fogginess, uncertainty. And so we're trying to figure things out here between, again, what's buried and hidden and what's above and beyond, this combination of both. But we'll be getting more and more of the Sagittarius, and that's where the focus will turn to, is your Sagittarius area of life as the sun starts to transit there. And again, I'll talk more about that as I'm going through this video. And then we have Mercury backing up into a trine with Saturn again and with Jupiter. So basically this Mercury backs up into the grand trine with Saturn and Jupiter, which is going to help us with information, with more knowledge, with better understanding, especially on this more intuitive level though. The data, the facts, the data, still a little bit off in my opinion. Astrological opinion with Neptune square. But this will also, I think, generally lead to something positive. Some people could receive good news, good information, something they've been waiting for, or a development for a process they're in that will start to work out. It'll be a great time to deal with any kind of important matters, like even though Mercury's retrograde, it's okay if you're doing something that's in a process like paperwork, something that takes longer than just this one day. But if you need to, like, again, apply for something, maybe you need to return to something in the past. Maybe there was something about work for some people. Maybe they had, an application and then they get a call and now that they go to the interview and, it could be this back and forth process. Or if you do need to do anything, it's always a good time to do it when Mercury is making good aspects to Saturn, authority, Jupiter of support or more opportunity in some way. Something more hopeful comes in for that later in the week with that. And I'll look at what else is going on when we look at the charts for it. And then the sun is sextile Pluto from Sagittarius later in this in the weekend, Sunday. So all the outer planets are really being aspected, which means, again, there's world developments. There's major things in the outer life that are being restructured for the world for the long-term future. And this is just one more part of that process of how the world is changing as it connects, as these inner planets connect to the outer planets in these ways. And then by next Monday, November 24, Mars reaches the T-square with the nodes of fate. I think it's a fateful week, pretty much all week, no matter what, because even the new moon is ruled by Mars in a T-square with the nodes of fate, but it's perfect on Monday, November 24. So military stuff could reach a very fateful point by next week in the world. New developments for military or action. Our action is at a crossroads with fate and destiny. I'll talk more about that. Mercury is also making an in conjunction to Chiron again on next Monday. And then Mercury backs all the way up to a conjunction with Venus. So Mercury and Venus are headed for each other. And that's a sweet little conjunction that will take place too. Looks like Monday night. So into next week. So those are all the major aspects. And again, there's a lot of them. So I will have them all written out for you in the description below, as always, with timestamps so you can follow along throughout the week. But let's get started. And, I know I focus on every week and more of the temporary stuff, and a lot of people are still curious and uncertain about the bigger picture and the future. And I just want to make it clear that what's going on in the astrology is so rare, but it's like it's a few years of a process. It's not instant. And people get impatient or they get tired or things aren't moving fast enough. But I've been talking about this new era for years, that we're building up to this new era here. And again, we saw a glimpse of it with all of these planets changing signs earlier in the year. And now we're back in this old energy again. But also, I don't know, some people feel like they think that there's not going to be any major upsets or changes when the world is changing in a dramatic way. I still look at it as overall, in hindsight, I think it does lead to positivity and a new world dynamic. And that's just how the world works. We go through these different phases that last for years, these eras. And we're, the bottom line is, regardless of our politics and what we think of it, the world is changing and there's no stopping it. And it's a process that takes a few years. And it can feel like a long time when we're living it day by day, and it feels like we're not getting anywhere, or there's only issues and problems. But we can't expect major world changes to happen without the system changing. It's like the status quo is not going to just stay the same as we're going through a world structure change. And so there's got to be upsets. There's got to be things that happen that makes it look like there's chaos or the world is really going through mass changes, of course, because this is a rare time in history that the world is changing and we're in the middle of it. So we don't really see it as clear as we will when we look back in the future of what's happening right now. But I just want to make it clear that, of course, there has to be some upsets and challenges that come along with change. That's why a lot of people fear change and don't want things to change. And it's on a lot of different levels that I could get into, but I'm just kind of generally putting that out there for you for some people, just to remind them that we are still in the middle of a really powerful turning of a time for the world, and we're just not fully there yet. We're in the middle of it all. So we have to keep fear in check, anxieties, worries, doubts, uncertainty that comes with it all. But the things I've been saying for years is still the way I'm looking at it. I don't see, everything is playing out exactly the way it's meant to, based on this reflection of the heavens. And by the time we get to Aries season in mid-April with an Aries new moon, there's going to be a stellium of Aries, and so much about the fire in the air coming in, the drive into new territory that pushes people into new territory, and they initiate a lot of new things. And we are going to see a lot about the future and the new era in the world of how it's shaping up next year and the following year. But don't expect it all just to be instant. It is a few years before we're really there and we've kind of seen this restructuring for the world order. But it's not as bad as so many people think that it's going to be about. It's just people get really fearful of change, in my opinion, and that's what's happening. But anyway, let's go through the chart like I do, looking at this week day by day. Starting here on Tuesday. I'm making this on Monday right now, but starting for Tuesday on November 18. So we start things with the dark moon phase for Tuesday and most of Wednesday until that moon reaches the sun. So the moon is going to be waning through most of Scorpio until it reaches the sun and gets renewed. Then the moon will be waxing all through Sagittarius and Capricorn for this week, looks like. Yeah, Sagittarius and Capricorn. And the moon will be making a lot of conjunctions. It'll make a conjunction to Venus, the Sun, Mercury, and Mars this week, and Pluto. But we start things off with a lot of Scorpio, and the Scorpio is only going to increase because literally the first aspect is Mercury coming back to Scorpio. And now we're going to have 4 planets, including the moon and the sun, in Scorpio for Tuesday. So let me look at that. Mercury will be in Sag in the early... Wait 1 second here. Let me look at the time for this. So Mercury will be in Sagittarius actually most of the day. There's really no major aspects until we get to Tuesday night. So all day Tuesday, the moon is just in Scorpio. Of course, it's not an easy place for the moon to be in. It deals with a lot more deeper emotions and feelings and things that are more private and hidden for people. But the moon is also approaching Venus, and it will reach Venus, looks like, on Tuesday night. So the moon is applying towards something pleasurable, something nice, and even a potential for a deeper connection. Now, the moon doesn't have any light on it, so keep that in mind, though. It is a dark moon. It is about kind of generally when the moon is behind the sun like this, it's about preparing for the new moon, preparing for the next cycle, behind the scenes and more private. But because Venus is in the middle of the moon and the sun, there could still be something going on with relationship or connection or pleasure, but it's more of a private scenario of whatever it is by Tuesday night. And Mercury is back at 0 degrees all day on Tuesday before it changes signs back into the critical 29 degree of Scorpio again. So it's already moved through here once, and now Mercury's going through this degree for the second time about Sagittarius, and it's looking at Scorpio. It's looking at that deep, dark water that's still, and it's like, what's below the surface? What's in there? We have to go into those depths. And again, there's going to be a lot by Tuesday night. So just expect kind of a mental shift by Tuesday night, a perception change, but also covering territory that we've already been connected to in this retrograde. Going back over old territory, thinking about things of the past, or continuing to process information and thoughts of something that's already been on our mind for a little bit. But it looks like, the biggest aspects in everything that starts to happen is going to be on Tuesday night as the moon reaches Venus and Mercury goes back to Scorpio. So now we have this stellium back in Scorpio. So again, it's a very private spot, intimate, especially with Venus there. It's more vulnerable too. And it's focused on everything that's deep and below the surface, but it also has these connections to the Pisces area of what's behind the scenes too, and the energetic sensitivity. But now with Mercury back at this critical degree, there's another sense of urgency about something. But this is also where the moon reaches Venus, T-square, that nodes, not a T-square, I'm sorry, it's more of a trine and a sextile from Moon Venus. So this is kind of the beginning of what I talked about with Venus trine the North Node and sextile the South Node, fateful relationship connections or financial connections for the future are developing in a private way below the surface. Whether we recognize the connection for the future or not, it could be happening. And this is at 15 degrees. So if you have 15 degrees of Scorpio in your chart, especially like the moon, the sun, Venus, Mars, Saturn, the Jupiter, something more important, a personal planet around 15 degrees, then you could be connected to this moon Venus, which is normally a really sweet connection. It's just that both moon and Venus are in their debilitation in Scorpio. So it's vulnerable. It's more uncomfortable a little bit of whatever this could be that it's connecting to in relationship or intimacy. And if there is something going on in your life with this connection on Tuesday night, it's fateful for the future. And then on the mundane level, something's happening with banks or investments or the financial side of government. There's something happening or changing that's going to affect the future. And it should be in a positive way because it is a trine. It's also connecting to Virgo, the work area, the health area. So there could be some sort of new connection coming in for some people on Tuesday night into Wednesday before the new moon. It could even be connected to this whole new cycle because it's close enough to the new moon. But also the moon is losing its light. It's closing out something too from Venus from the past about money and resources and relationship. So for some people, it might just be a feeling of something that's coming in for you on Tuesday night into Wednesday. And then that could lead to future developments about it as we're going through the Scorpio cycle and moving forward. So I look at it as a fateful night. It's fateful Tuesday night and it's fateful on Wednesday too, and throughout the week in different ways. But that's what we have. Now all this Scorpio is being ruled by Mars, so it still comes back to the Sagittarius side of the chart too. And what we're going to be motivated by to take action, what drives us, what's pushing us. But I'll talk more about that because that's going to be a part of the new moon too. So moving forward, so most of the day, there's no aspects really until Tuesday night when everything is kind of connecting in this fateful way. And there's that change of perception. So most of Tuesday is kind of carried over from Monday and what's been happening. And then there's kind of a shift of energy by Tuesday night into Wednesday, into this deeper, more intense side of the zodiac again. And then we get to Wednesday on November 19. And again, Venus is continuing to be in this trine and sextile with the nodes of fate. So Tuesday morning, things, there could have been some behind the scenes developments in the world or in financial matters on Monday night, or on Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday morning, we might be seeing some sort of result of that, Or again, it could be connected to this next cycle that we'll see play out this next month, connected to Venus things of money and new future dynamics about money for the future in some way could be a part of this. Or again, it could be about a relationship that's in a very fateful spot right now for the future. But it'll play out in different ways for different people. But again, I think if you have 15 degrees of Scorpio, 15 of Pisces, then you're really wrapped up in that fate and that destiny with either money or relationship stuff. And then Mercury backs up into the perfect opposition with Uranus on Wednesday morning, first thing in the morning, that sets the tone for the rest of the day. And Mercury is trine Neptune. So again, Mercury is connecting to two of the outer planets, and even technically Pluto too. It's still within orb of Pluto. So we're having this connection to again, things that are like, I look at the outer planets as not ruling signs. They don't rule our everyday life. They rule generational things. They rule the world and the bigger dynamics that are shaping the world. And now Mercury, this inner planet, is connecting to all of these outer planets for a second time. We're getting news, we're getting information, or influenced by what's behind the scenes in this Neptune critical spot. And Saturn there, and the group and the community we're getting influenced by, we're connecting to as part of our process of figuring out truth and information in the future. It's connected to the group and the community. It's connected to what's behind the scenes in more private ways. Scandals and conspiracies are more in alignment with picking up. But this is also showing that people are also tapped into their fantasies, their imagination, and their creativity. Or best case scenario would be more of an intuitive kind of understanding here, what's unspoken. Whereas in Sagittarius, it's more blunt, more outward and spoken. This position is back into a way of reading what's between the lines, understanding the deeper motivations of people, and just having this knowing about things that's more intuitive. But that's, again, best case scenario, because for other people, or even the news, the media, it could be connected to scandal, news and information about scandals and conspiracies that's been ongoing for a while already. Or it could be even projecting those things out too. So be a little cautious of what you're hearing. Maybe not everything is completely true. Mercury is in a trickster position here too. And the opposition to Uranus, it could be surprising. There could be something that's coming out that's scandalous or conspiracy or something that was unknown. But is it the full story? Is it everything? Or is there more details that we're not getting in this time frame? That's possible. But there could be a sense of something that's surprising that's coming out. And again, it's going to really stir up this revolutionary vibe too in the air that's been building up a little bit, that this whole cycle is connected to. But it's also this sense of urgency. We have 3 planets at 29 degrees right now by Wednesday. Mercury, Neptune, and Uranus. This is a sense of urgency for certain matters that are playing out to happen. And it's critical, but there could still be shocks and surprises and just some volatility and unpredictability going on here as we're going through this week. Now, these are also the signs of money. This is a lot about the future, about banks, money, investments, other financial matters in different contexts in the world, that this is connected to as well. And then we are going to have the moon in conjunct to Chiron, and the moon will make a grand trine to Saturn and Jupiter before the new moon. So the moon in conjunct to Chiron, picking up again on wounds, sensitivities, injuries, confidence issues about the self, the independence, the freedom, versus deeper merging with people or situations that this new cycle is talking about as well. But then the moon in a grand trine, it kind of reactivates what the sun just went through with the trine to Jupiter and Saturn. So a water grand trine, there's a lot of things that are flowing, a lot of energetics that are flowing, but it's all water-based. It's all emotions and sensitivities and what's below the surface and behind the scenes and what's hidden. But I think it's still a helpful hand. Again, Jupiter and Saturn are helping each other out. The planet of government, maturity, seriousness, commitments, duties, obligations. It's connected to Jupiter in the home, the family, the needs for safety, security, and comfort, the homeland, growth and expansion is possible, but it's kind of on the verge of kind of stalling out a little bit. And then the circumstances, the mood, the feelings that are being picked up on for Wednesday afternoon right before the new moon. And then this is the new moon that we get to, which is going to be on Wednesday night. Let me align it for us. Mercury and Venus are involved. Here I've already have it on this other chart right here. So the new moon is at 28 degrees, 11 minutes of Scorpio. And it's close enough to the 29th degree that we consider it a sense of urgency and critical at the end of Scorpio. A sense of change and a new beginning that's trying to happen. But this isn't where we just see all the results of a new beginning instantly, because symbolic seeds of intentions are going to be planted for the next 2.5 to 3 days, both from Scorpio and into Sagittarius, which again, I think that this is going to be the cycle that the biggest truth comes out, that what's been hidden and deep, that some things are day by day coming out here and there, but it's not the full story. It's not the full picture until that moon comes around in a full moon phase. And then it's ruled by Mercury direct in Scorpio. And then Mercury goes back through the end of this into Sag again in December. So it's like the rest of November and all of December is still about this process of figuring out truth and what's above and beyond in the future, and what's been hidden, what's been below the surface, scandals, conspiracies, all these things that are being worked up and talked about. And then money. This is a cycle about resources, other people's money, other people's resources in our lives, and how we work with that. But if you have a personal planet at 28 degrees of Scorpio, then you're definitely tied into this. And if you do have a personal planet, you're already getting a rare transit from Saturn and Neptune, and then next year with Jupiter, and you got the Uranus going on. So if you have a personal planet at the end of the fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, or Leo, then you're already kind of in this revolutionary turning point in your life now through next year. And this is one part of that process that's starting, where seeds are going to be planted symbolically the next few days for this entire cycle and what's going to come out. But Mercury is a part of it. The communications, the information is a part of what this cycle is all about. And then Venus is on the backside of it all. The value that can come from this cycle, the relationship connections and developments that can come from this entire cycle as it plays out. Now, there's a lot of aspects from this new moon. It's trine Neptune, even Saturn, what's behind the scenes. Again, the dreams, the fantasies, spiritual connections for some people, the need to produce and create things and work on things that are more private and below the surface or behind the scenes. Or, again, what is influencing people energetically from behind the scenes. The world, the collective unconsciousness is affecting this entire cycle that we have an alignment to, that most people obviously aren't aware of, like the influence of social media and what's being projected out into the world affects this cycle in such a major way, and people's minds and thoughts and ideas and communications. It's all in alignment with this of what's hidden behind the scenes. So it's a cycle that is connected to scandals. That's going to be a big part of what's coming out in December as well. More and more of information about certain scandals and maybe even some conspiracy stuff. And then it's opposite Uranus. So again, this entire cycle has a revolutionary vibe to it. It has more of a rebelliousness, a more of a push for liberation in certain ways, breaking free from where people feel stuck in some cases. And then it affects money and resources. We're going to see major financial developments, major turning point in the market, most likely within the next month. And then we'll get more stabilized in what direction the market will be. Will we be going to a bear market, or will we continue with the bull market? I do need to do a lot more research because I've been lagging behind on the financial astrology, but I will get more into that as time goes on here. But it's kind of the beginning of a turning point for the financials based on that Taurus full moon that I told you about. That was kind of the high point for the year to 6 month cycle of value. But again, Venus is in a difficult spot here, so we can't expect too much around having everything we want or money and a super big point here. Again, Venus is going through this process. And I also want to point out, guys, that there's a lot of people that take offense when I talk about some of these transits and what they mean in the sky. It doesn't mean that that's how it is for you in your own birth chart. This is not your chart. This is not your horoscope that I'm talking about when I do transits. I know a lot of you know that already, but there's some new people that don't know that or don't realize that. They think I say something bad about Venus and Scorpio, and that means that they have it in their chart for life. It doesn't mean you can't have money and a good romance and good money having Venus and Scorpio in your birth chart, because you have your whole life to work with your birth placements and go through different phases and learn the ups and downs of it all. And then you also progress as time goes on into new flavors and new dynamics. Whereas these transits are temporary up in the sky. We don't have a lifetime to work it out. So it's usually more messy, and it's usually the more challenging side of it when we're going through the transits. So please don't take offense to certain things I say about some placements. If you happen to have them in your chart is not the same as what's going on in the sky right now, no matter what. Even if you have Venus in Scorpio, well, where's your Mars? Because Mars could be anywhere. Venus in Scorpio is going to be way different with Mars in Sagittarius compared to Mars in Capricorn or Aquarius or any of the other signs. And then the aspects off of Mars and Venus, it's always going to be unique to your own life and your own chart. You're never going to just have the same dynamic playing out in the sky. So anyway, again, try not to take offense to anything I say, because we just don't have the time to make it at its best when it's temporary like this. Okay, now with that, so the opposition to Uranus, the revolutionary vibes, the dreamy, creative vibes that's trine to Neptune is in, and then there's a sextile to Pluto, the group and the community as well, influencing the power dynamic within the community, within politics, influencing this entire cycle. But really, this entire cycle is a lot to say about something of value that we're trying to get to, and information with Mercury there, generally speaking. All right, let me go back to the daily chart. And so that new moon will be exact at 11:47 p.m. on Wednesday night. So that's going to be early morning hours for other people in the U.S. and Europe. That's going to be on Thursday, the following day, November 20th, depending on where you live. But if you're on the West Coast, or in Mountain Time, then it's on late on Wednesday night is the new moon. And so set your intentions for the next few days. Be more aware of what you're feeling and thinking about and where this is going to be leading you for the next few weeks. All right, and then we get to the following day, on Thursday, November 20th. We're in this new moon, and right off the bat, the moon is going to be changing signs into Sagittarius. But let me look at the aspects. All right, November 20th, first aspect is the moon conjunct Mercury in this fresh new way, and planting seeds and grabbing something, like taking a message from Mercury and beginning to move it forward and plant seeds for what will come out later. But it can also show Moon Mercury a strong need for communications and information, and there could be a lot of mental stimulation and just a lot of mental activity that's starting to change. Now, that also comes along with the Mercury conjunct the Sun. So a strong focus on communication and information and wisdom and knowledge and what's deeper, what's below the surface, what's hidden. Again, the need to get down to the bottom of truth, but there could be understandings, even though it's a new moon, it's not a full moon, it's more intuitive, it's coming in from some other source potentially, but there's still like a turning of the corner here about how we're thinking and processing information. So pay attention to what's going on for Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday with this new moon, because Mercury is a huge part of it all. And again, Mercury rules the work, the service, the health life, where there's purging and purification and restructuring and ongoing for some people. And that could be a part of this new cycle as well. And then Mercury rules the Gemini, the streets, the technology that's been coming out, the news and information and the media. And again, trying to find truth and understanding in the future and where we're headed. But we're going back into the deep end to figure it out. So it's a turning point there. And then the moon is trine Neptune, opposite Uranus, and then changes signs. So again, we're having so much influence from other places of life, behind the scenes, and it could be a little bit of a disruptive week. There can be a lot of changes and unpredictability and volatility going on. And again, revolution is in the air about this. And then the moon enters Sagittarius for the next 2.5 days, beginning to wax forward in this sign. So now that the moon is in Sagittarius, it's being ruled by Jupiter for the next 2.5 days, and there's a mutual reception between Jupiter and the moon. So there's this continuing to be this really strong connection to where Jupiter is in Cancer. Wherever you have Cancer in your birth chart, that's a major area that is affecting what's driving you. Because again, Mars is out in front, taking action and driving everything forward based on Jupiter in Cancer. So generally it's about, again, your home and your family life, your safety, security needs, and the comfort and that more inner world about family and home and what needs to change. What do we need to do for the future to keep what we need? But it all depends on where Cancer is in your birth chart. It could be different things for you depending on your personal chart. But we still have this moon coming out of the deep end and into Sagittarius, which is typically big energy, big feelings, big mood now, but it's normally a little more uplifting, a little more hopeful, a little more positive and optimistic. But now the moon is next to Mars. And I believe this is probably, again, on a mundane level, going to be talking about military activity within this cycle. Perhaps when that moon crosses over Mars, it picks up on a message from Mars, the military, and then continues the plan of something as it moves forward. But generally, the moon applying towards Mars is going to show this like change of energy for people on Thursday morning to be more active, to be more emotionally impulsive, to be more adventurous, more bold, more outward, but yet we still have so much inward at the same time. Most of everything is water still, this flood that we've been going through internally with emotions and feelings and sensitivities and blah, blah, blah. So now we're on that transition into some more fire again. And so now we have a little more fire, a little more passion, a little more motivation for what's driving us. It deals with worldly stuff too. The moon coming through here the next couple days. Could talk more about traveling, transportation issues, cultural issues, education, learning, strong emotional need to be learning things, understanding things as this cycle builds and as the sun begins to reach this critical degree of a sense of urgency for a change and revolutionary as it opposes Uranus. So the moon also makes a sextile to Pluto, and then we have that Uranus-Neptune perfect sextile. So the moon also connecting to the group, the friends, the community, and politics and beliefs and opinions, more stimulated, more social, more outward, generally speaking, and more of like an empowerment too that could come in for people here. I'm running behind. I'm at an hour already, but I'll move quicker. But anyway, the moon sextile Pluto, and then that Uranus-Neptune sextile I talked about, that's inspiring revolution, that's inspiring changes for the world and the world dynamics. That's going to be ongoing the next 2 years. This is just one part of it, of what is inspiring change and revolution in the air and dreams and trying, being more innovative, trying things that are different. But it's all critical because of the 29th degree. All right, so that is Thursday. And again, all this is really happening first thing in the morning, so it really sets the tone for most of the day as the moon is waxing through Sagittarius, applying towards Mars. More and more of this impulsiveness, this action. And, even though it's Sagittarius, which the moon in Sag typically wants to be more lighthearted and more funny and joking around and having a good time and not being overly serious, that might be a part of the mood, but because Mars is there, and it still comes back to this mutual reception with Jupiter and Cancer of emotions and feelings of things, it could still be a little bit riled up for people, especially when the moon reaches Mars. Mars moon, it's always a little bit of a red flag you have to be a little careful of. But that's going to be on Friday morning when that's exact. That'll be the first aspect. In fact, when we wake up on Friday morning, November 21st, we have the moon conjunct Mars. That sets the tone for the rest of the day. Again, it can be impulsive, it can be active and fiery and passionate and bold with its feelings and self-expression and adventure and the need for freedom and independence. Generally with the moon, Mars, and Sagittarius, it is a person that needs to have a certain amount of freedom, but yet the Scorpio is a more intimate, deeper connection that could be happening from below the surface there. But this is just part of the dynamic. And then this is where the moon will enter the T-square with the nodes of fate, followed up by Mars. Plus, because Mars rules the new moon and it's in a T-square with the nodes of fate, this entire cycle is fateful, meaning that the action that's taking place is going to have a long-term effect on the future or put people at a crossroads for their fate and their destiny, and having to make a decision or what they do will affect some major development for the future, things like that. But this is also when the sun is, again, activating the Neptune trine and the Uranus opposition of revolutionary vibes. So it's especially revolutionary perhaps on Friday morning because the moon is next to Mars and the sun is opposite Uranus. So there's still a chance of some disruptions, some unpredictability, volatility, wild card vibes in the air, a little bit of that rebelliousness in the air. People's need for doing what they want to do independently with the moon Mars. And then the sun shining a light on Neptune. So in alignment with something more intuitive, or dreams and fantasies, or escapism, movies, film, photography, music. That would be on the more positive side. But it's also highlighting, again, what's hidden normally behind the scenes a little bit there. So again, I think more and more information, day by day, night by night, that's building more and more understanding. And then the moon is in that T-square with the nodes of fate. So again, it continues to be a fateful day. I'm thinking all week long is pretty much fateful. It's going to be a very important week with major developments for the world and the future and people's individual lives as well. So again, whatever's happening, it has a long-term effect on the future by Friday morning, first thing. And then the sun changes signs for a change of season, a change of focus. Sun ingress Sagittarius. Now we have 3 planets in Sag and only 2 left in Scorpio. So we start off with this huge amount of Scorpio energy, the stellium, and then a couple days later, we're losing it and we're in the fiery Sagittarius area of life. And it's unique too, because it's almost like a Sagittarius new moon. The moon is like right in front of the sun, building in a new moon. So it's really this transition new moon that we're in from Scorpio to Sagittarius. They're kind of combined, and Mercury is tying them together as well. Again, what's below the surface and what's above and beyond. We need both to really get the full understanding here. But now the sun is in Sag. It's a whole new season, a whole new focus. So check your chart. Where do you have Sagittarius in your chart? Whatever area of life that is, that's where the biggest transits are now. That's where the focus is. That's what's going to be highlighted for you from this point forward. And Mars has already been going through there. Mercury already came into there. So it's already been something that's been a part of what we've been dealing with, our Sagittarius area. But it's generally about, again, it's a Jupiter sign. It's about big energy, big dynamics, going big with things, a little more of indulgences with pleasures and knowing what our daily activity is. And it also just brings more emphasis on, let's try to tone down a little bit of the intensity or the seriousness and get more into joy and, a sense of humor and more fun in a little bit of a way for some people. Other people, it could be a really powerful time of trying to learn, research things, especially with the combination of Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's perfect for research and investigation. And this could deal with a lot of, on the mundane level, court cases and justice issues and these bigger issues in the world of what's above and beyond. It could deal with a lot of travel for some people, adventure, but it could just really put a focus on learning things and understanding things and trying to see things from this bigger perspective. But the fact that Mars is in between both the moon and the sun, it could still be a powerful time of adventure, of activity, of physical activity going on for a lot of people, outdoor stuff, exercise. Now, it's probably cold in a lot of places, but other places it's not. But there's also, it could just be, more and more of this Mars type of vibe that we're working with. So it can be exercise, it can be adventure, travel, things like that. For me, it's probably going to be motorcycle stuff with Mars on my ascendant and now Sagittarius season, so much more like fiery adventure, motorcycle riding. That's me, but it's going to be different for everybody. Because I live where it's still warm, luckily. So anyway, just a change of focus now. And again, all this is being ruled by Jupiter, so it still comes back to emotions and feelings. Normally, Sagittarius doesn't have this connection to Cancer in the way that it does in this period of time. So it still has a strong connection to the home and the family matters and what you need, and these more private, inward part of life versus, again, what's going on in the bigger picture of life and what's outward. So if you have a personal planet at 0 degrees, you might really feel this ingress strongly. 0 degrees of the mutable signs like Sag, it's your birthday or your solar return. If you have 0 Sagittarius, so happy birthday to you. Or if you have 0 Pisces, it's a square, that could really you could stimulate something that feels a little more challenging, or the opposition to Gemini, 0 Gemini. And if you do have those 0 degrees, you're already going through the Uranus transit. That's revolutionary for 2025 into 2026 for you. And now the sun highlights that even more. And then Virgo as well. And of course, the Sag will be in better harmony and flow with Aquarius, Aries, opposition to Gemini, but it's okay. And then Leo and Libra. But we still have this grand trine because Mercury is backing up into the grand trine with Jupiter and Saturn now. So that'll be the following day. We get to Saturday on November 22nd. We have a lot of aspects continuing. Moon trine Chiron, Moon in conjunct to Jupiter, Moon square Saturn, but then Mercury in a grand trine. So Moon at the end of Sagittarius does run into some issues here. Moon squaring Saturn and in conjunct to Chiron. It's like we want to be happier, we want to be easygoing for the most part and having a better time here, but then we run into this weight, this pressure that's behind the scenes that's making this entire time frame a little more challenging, generally speaking, for people. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are having a great life and having positive developments, but I know there's a lot that are also going through their personal challenges. And I really feel like this Saturn-Neptune is a huge part of the energetic weight and burden and the messiness psychologically that's being all stirred up and emotionally stirred up. And the moon, the circumstances run into that, so it's like there's a restriction, there's a limitation, there's a pressure, that we kind of run into for first thing on Saturday morning. It's not going to be all day. It's only the first few hours of the morning, but it's going to be a kind of the beginning of a change of mood and flavor for the rest of the day, because then the moon will change signs later on in the day. But right as the moon is making that square to Saturn, and there is a little bit of a pressure, a weight, a burden, or a restriction, or a slowdown or something, then that's when Mercury reaches the grand trine with Saturn and Jupiter for the rest of the day on Saturday. And again, all the planets have been moving through this. Venus will be the last planet to go through this aspect of this grand trine. The sun was already highlighting this, this weekend into Monday. And so it's a continuation. But Mercury has been here before, and now it's back. And now it's connecting to Saturn and Jupiter in this supportive way of saying, okay, again, there's a chance, and I can't promise it for everybody, of course, but there's a chance there could be some good news, that comes in, or something from the past comes back, or, again, something that's already been on the mind has some sort of a positive connection or development potentially, or if you need to do something important, like paperwork or deal with the government or something more serious in a mercurial way, then it is Saturday, see, it may not be practical, but if you're able to do it on Saturday, then this could be a good time period to deal with anything serious about communications, or, if you have to do anything, then this could be a good alignment to do it with Mercury trine Saturn and Jupiter this weekend. And Venus is about to come into that dynamic too. So I feel like money and resources or a relationship connection or something, depending on the person, could also have a new development of information that's more positive. Potentially. Now, this could also be intuitive or just feeling more hope, more inspired, more positive about something for the future that's been in some tricky territory for a while that we've been going back and forth with in some way. So, of course, people that will benefit the most will have a personal planet here at 25 degrees of Scorpio or Cancer or Pisces. But you have to realize that there's bigger stuff that's connected to it. You may not be seeing the full results instantly. There's something below the surface and hidden that this is connected to for you if you do have 25 Scorpio, Pisces, or Cancer. And it's a trine, so some people might not even realize whatever is making something better for them, that it would otherwise be a lot more difficult if this grand trine wasn't in place as a support in some way for people that have these degrees. Okay, need to move on here. So the moon then squares Neptune and kind of changes the mood and the flavor from that seriousness, that heaviness, that pressure. And then the square to Neptune can be a little bit of a sensitivity that starts to come in for people and a mood change that it follows up with. Moon square Neptune, uncertainty, confusion, doubt, dreamy, sensitive, wanting to retreat. But then it's Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening when this is happening. So try not to get too carried away with how you're feeling about something. It'll pass if you do get wrapped up in a feeling on Saturday evening, Saturday night, depending on where you live. But then the moon comes into Capricorn, and that's a change for the next 2.5 days. The moon in Capricorn is more serious. It's drier emotions and feelings, and a lot more serious, and a lot more about work and responsibilities and trying to be punctual and do what you need to do. And also look at your goals, your ambitions, where you stand with work. So it just creates a little more of a serious mood from this point forward now. And now the circumstances are being ruled by Saturn. So we picked up on some sort of a pressure or responsibility or something that's energetically behind the scenes. And now we're kind of, in a way, we're going to kind of be ruled by what is behind the scenes as we're looking at our responsibilities Saturday night and through Sunday into Monday. And yeah, the last aspect is Mercury trine Jupiter. So even though there's a little bit of this feeling that came across here, there's still this opening for good news, good information, good wisdom, especially intuitively. It's not necessarily, it's not the air, it's not the fire, it's not outward, it's more inner kind of connection here. But it can still give us a sense of support with what we're thinking about and dealing with on this bigger level of life, of a process that's in development for some people. And again, it kind of ushers in Venus into this too. And this is something of value that I feel is starting to turn the corner. Something more positive could start to show here, despite, continued difficulties in different ways in the world. But on a personal level, I feel like this can be a turning of the corner into feeling more supported, or good news, or looking at something in a different way, different perspective that allows you to kind of see how you're going to be working with it. Something like that could start to come in. And then we get to Sunday on November 23, and Mars is entering that T-square with the nodes of fate. That'll be exact the following day. There's only 3 aspects here on Sunday, and that's the Sun sextile Pluto and the Moon aspecting the nodes of fate. So it's still, Sunday and Monday are also very fateful. It's almost like every day of this week is fateful, having these stronger, longer term connections to what's happening right now. But Moon connecting to the nodes of fate from the Capricorn side of what we need to do, what we feel like we need to work on, our goals and our ambitions. There could be a feeling here on Sunday that's pushing people forward on the path they're meant to be on, or any kind of work or responsibility, things that are happening on Sunday could also be fateful for the long-term future. And then the Sun connecting to Pluto can be an empowerment aspect. Again, we can turn the corner into something more optimistic, more positive, more empowered, but also connecting to the group and the friends and the community in this powerful way. Social activity there being amplified, politics being amplified, but it's a sextile, so it should be more smooth and it shouldn't be overly intense with these other aspects. But Mars, again, Mars rules the military and general action, and that's where things are intense. That's where they're critical and at a fateful crossroads. And I'm pretty sure that this whole cycle is building up to some sort of major military activity that should be manifesting within the next week or two. I would think, especially when that Mars runs into squares with Saturn and Neptune, that's going to be some issue, but that's down the road a little bit. All right, so that's Sunday, just a fateful day. Moon in Capricorn, kind of more of a serious mood, more about work and taking care of business, getting things done. From behind the scenes, there's a strong energetic connection to pressure, weight, a little bit of stress maybe for some people. But then we get to Monday, November 24, the moon is still in Capricorn, waxing forward, and we have a lot of aspects. Mercury in conjunct to Chiron, so we've already gone through that in the past. We're revisiting it. Again, thinking about, how do we feel about the self, our security, our confidence, our independence, our freedom, wounds, injuries, anything like that. I would say, we should still be careful of traveling and transportation issues. I think it's better with Mars separating from Mercury now, but with that in conjunction, still be careful. Pay attention to what you're doing. If you're in a mercurial way. And then Mars perfectly T-squared the nodes of fate. So again, Monday is a super fateful day. It could be about military or other conflict or aggression, or even traveling, transportation. Something's fateful. So we'll see what it is. We'll see what happens around Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. And whatever that is, we'll know that it's a part of fate and destiny playing out. But actions are at a fateful crossroads. So, I look at that as when there's a node of fate being aspected, I think, okay, we need to be extra cautious of what we do, because even small, little things can have long-term impacts in ways that we weren't expecting when the nodes are activated like this. So it can affect health, it can affect work, it can affect the behind-the-scenes things going on here that I've been talking about, and that's more private and hidden. And it can deal with education, traveling, transportation, faith, belief. And the moon is making a sextile to Venus and Mercury in Scorpio as the day goes on for Monday. And that's more of a positive connection that's happening. It's a mixed bag on Monday. There's challenges and there's easy aspects all at the same time. But circumstances are connecting to Mercury, Venus. That could be good for business communications, making business deals, coming back to a deal that's already been in process and continuing to negotiate or work on it in some way. So it could have some more of like a professional connection on Monday afternoon. It'd be a good time for a meeting or a phone call or email or mercurial activity, or again, dealing with people and work and business in any type of a way. Okay, so that's an easy aspect. And then the moon is square Chiron and opposing Jupiter. So still some sensitivity in the air and some big energy, some big moods, some big feelings, big circumstances could be playing out in government situations. Government is most likely going to really be moving forward next week from where they've been stuck for a while. Everything's going to start moving forward now with this new cycle waxing through Capricorn. And everything's like really big about government and what's happening in the world by Monday with that opposition from Moon, Jupiter. And then the moon is sextile Saturn, also again continuing to connect to government and work and business and career stuff, important matters, serious matters from behind the scenes. And then the last aspect of this report week is the Mercury-Venus conjunction at 22 degrees. This is the degree that Mercury will be at on the full moon in Gemini. So also pay attention to what's going on here on Monday night with this conjunction at 22 Scorpio. So Mercury-Venus, that's a little bit of a sweet spot there. It's good. It's usually something more enjoyable in communication or within a relationship or a financial matter that we've come back to and are looking at again, and there's new developments with it. But it's usually, now in Scorpio, it's still intense. It's still more private and vulnerable, but it could also be, communicating in an intimate relationship on a deeper level, going back to unresolved issues or something that need to be talked about. It's still a little more what's below the surface and unspoken and reading between the lines, but it's still Mercury-Venus. So that's a pretty good aspect that's happening, and it's connected to future developments too. So just pay attention to money, relationship connections, information, news, anything that's coming out. And if you have a planet at 22 degrees of Scorpio, it could be important for you, around this time and for the rest of November into December when because Mercury's going to back up to about 20 degrees and go direct and then slowly come back through here. So Mercury's pretty much slowing down from this point to be kind of stuck right here in Scorpio. And then by December 4 on the full moon, rolled by Mercury, it's right here again, and then we'll start moving forward. So from now until December 4, and a little bit after that, there's major news and information that will affect the future, depending on if it aligns with your chart. And then next week's report, next Tuesday, for my next video, we'll start things off with the moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, and I'll be waxing forward. So that's what I have for you this week. And again, I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button for me. It really does help things out. And I wish you the very best this upcoming week. Take good care.